Welcome everyone to By Jash Channel. Buckle up, because today we're going deep into Wilbur Smith's Fire on the Horizon.
Oh yeah, this one is exciting.
It's 1899 in colonial South Africa, and intrigue and conflict are everywhere. We're going to meet some amazing characters along the way.
And Smith throws us right into the action, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Right away, we meet Colonel Penrod Ballantyne, disguised as an Irishman.
Disguised as an Irishman.
Yeah, he's traveling to Johannesburg, but it feels like something big is about to happen. You can just feel the tension.
I love how he creates that atmosphere like, okay, something is brewing between the Boers and the British. But before we get too far, can we back up a sec? Who exactly are the Boers? What's this conflict all about?
Sure. The Boers are also called Afrikaners. They're descendants of Dutch settlers who came to South Africa a long time ago, like centuries, and they formed their own republics.
Independent from the British, right?
That's right. But then gold was discovered in the Transvaal.
Which was a Boer republic.
Exactly. So suddenly the British were very interested.
Oh, I bet.
And that's what really fueled the tension between the two groups. The Boers wanting their independence, the British wanting that gold.
A classic clash.
Yeah. And right in the middle of it all is Penrod traveling on this train with Gerrit Vintner.
Who is a prominent Boer, right? And his daughter, Hester.
You got it. And this train journey, it's more than just a scenic trip. It shows how much resentment and mistrust there is even before the war really kicks off.
Yeah, you get a sense of that underlying tension, like it could erupt at any moment.
And then it does. Out of nowhere, there's a train robbery.
Talk about a sudden turn of events.
It's chaos, gunfire, panic. A young girl gets caught in the crossfire. It's really tragic.
It's such a stark reminder of the violence that was so prevalent during this time.
It really sets the stage for the larger conflict that's about to explode. And you see Penrod, he's a military man. He jumps into action. It's like his instincts take over.
Right. He can't help himself, even though he's supposed to be undercover.
Exactly. And through Penrod's conversations with Vintner, we start to understand the Boer perspective a little better. Their fears, their frustrations, all of it.
It's like this tiny version of the bigger conflict all playing out on this moving train. And then we meet another key player, Ryder Courtney.
Ah, Ryder.
A wealthy businessman with a past connected to Penrod. Didn't they know each other from their time in Sudan?
They did. Ryder's a complicated guy. He's a shrewd businessman, but his personal life is a mess. A whole web of difficult relationships.
His wife, Saffron, is quite a character, too.
Oh, she definitely is. Saffron is impulsive, and she has a habit of causing a stir.
Speaking of causing a stir, what about that incident in Cairo with the fountain?
Oh, man. Saffron's temper gets the best of her, and, well, a British socialite ends up taking an unexpected dip. Let's just say it doesn't go over well.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. And that incident ends up forcing Ryder and Saffron to move to Cape Town, which, as it turns out, is closer to all the action brewing in the Transvaal.
Like fate was pushing them towards the conflict.
And wouldn't you know it, Penrod's family also shows up in Cape Town, a family reunion in the middle of all this political turmoil. I can't even imagine.
No, it's going to get interesting. But there's more. Remember Ryder's son, Leon?
Oh, yeah, Leon. He wasn't a fan of his father, was he? Idolizing military men like Penrod instead.
It created this tension, like a mini version of the bigger conflict, but within the family itself. It makes you wonder how it will all play out when the war really starts.
Okay, so we've got these intertwining storylines, these really complex characters, and this war that's about to break out. Where do we go from here?
Well, as war becomes more and more inevitable, the preparations get serious. We're introduced to Baden-Powell, a major figure in the British military. He's in charge of getting Mafeking ready for a possible siege.
Mafeking, a place we'll hear a lot more about later on.
Definitely. But here's where things get even more fascinating. The Baralong people, a local tribe, they become crucial allies for the British.
So it's not as simple as just Boers versus Brits.
Not at all. There are alliances and betrayals that complicate everything.
You've got to love a good twist.
Right. The Baralong, led by Chief Wessels and Sol Plaatje, they bring a ton of knowledge about the land and a fierce fighting spirit. They're going to be important.
I'm ready to learn more about them. But before we dive into that, something else happens that throws everything into disarray. The Mount Nelson Hotel in Cape Town catches fire.
Oh yeah, that was terrible. Families have to flee for safety, and it pushes everyone closer to the center of the conflict.
Like they're being drawn into this war whether they like it or not.
Exactly. So as the story unfolds, our characters find themselves on the brink of a war that will test everything they have. Their courage, their loyalties, their very survival. It's a real page-turner. As we left off, Mafeking is bracing for that siege. But we're not in Mafeking right now, are we?
Not quite. Remember Saffron. She's far away in escort, desperate to reach her son, Leon.
And that journey to Mafeking, it's quite a story in itself. It shows just how determined she is to get to him.
It's not just the physical distance, is it? It's everything she has to overcome along the way. It really highlights the social dynamics of that time. We're talking colonial South Africa, right? There was a huge divide between the British and the native African population.
A huge divide. And yet Saffron forms this unlikely alliance with the Baralong people.
It's incredible. I mean, so many of her peers would never have even considered it. But Saffron, she sees their strength, their resilience. She doesn't look down on them.
She sees them as equals, as allies. And that open-mindedness, it's crucial to her success. It makes you think about how we view people who are different from us, even today.
It really does. And I love how Smith uses Saffron's journey to show us the complexities of colonialism. It's not just about wars and politics. It's about the personal stories, the human connections that cut across all those societal barriers.
It makes it so much more real, more relatable. And through this alliance, Saffron doesn't just get safe passage to Mafeking. She learns so much about the land, the people, the realities of this conflict. She becomes more than just a worried mother.
Right. She's actively shaping events now. It's like she finds a new kind of strength.
Exactly. But back in Mafeking, things are getting worse. The siege is tightening its grip, food shortages, the constant threat of attack. It's taking a toll on everyone.
You can't even imagine living under that kind of pressure, that constant fear.
It really tests what people are made of. You see their resilience, how resourceful they have to be just to survive. But even with that sense of unity, there's this underlying unease.
Because of Cressy, right?
Yeah, that corrupt British officer.
Yeah.
His actions, they threaten the whole community. It's like he's undermining everything they're trying to do.
Cressy's a great example of how power can corrupt. He's only looking out for himself, even if it means putting others in danger.
It makes you wonder, what would you do in that situation? Would you stand up to someone like Cressy, even if it meant risking everything?
It's a tough question. And as Cressy's lies start to unravel, it leads to this huge confrontation with Ryder. Ryder finally sees him for who he really is.
And it's not just a personal betrayal, is it? It's a clash of values. Ryder, despite his faults, he believes in doing the right thing, in supporting the community. Cressy only cares about himself.
It's a classic battle between good and evil. But right when things seem their darkest, Saffron arrives in Mafeking.
What a moment. Not only does she bring much-needed supplies, but she brings hope. The reunion between her and Leon, it just melts your heart.
And don't forget Amber. Seeing those two women together, it's like a reminder that even in the middle of all this chaos, human connection still matters. Love and friendship can endure even the toughest times.
It gives you hope, doesn't it? That even in war, there's still room for compassion. And as the siege reaches its climax, it's those individual stories, those threads of hope and resilience that really stand out. They show us that even when things seem impossible, the human spirit can find a way.
Okay, so we're in the final part of Fire on the Horizon. The tension in Mafeking is crazy high. We've seen some amazing acts of bravery, but also some terrible betrayals. But now Saffron and Ryder are there. Do you think they can make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. They broke through the Boer blockade. That's a huge symbol of hope for people inside Mafeking. It's like, hey, we're not forgotten, help is coming. And not just supplies, but that fighting spirit.
Right. It's like their arrival injects a new energy into the whole town.
Exactly. But we can't forget about Cressy. He's still a major threat. He's driven by revenge now.
He's just causing chaos everywhere he goes.
You know, Cressy is such a well-developed villain. He shows how war can corrupt even those who might seem civilized, twisting their desires into something really dark.
And his actions have some devastating consequences, like the death of Setunia, that Baralong woman. It's heartbreaking.
Smith doesn't sugarcoat the realities of war, does he? Innocent people get caught in the crossfire, lives are lost, and those who survive, they're changed forever.
It's a powerful reminder of the human cost of conflict. And then we have Studiford trying to protect Amber from Cressy. He's so loyal.
He risks his own life to protect her. It's a testament to his character, you know. What a guy.
So much happens in this last section, but I think it all builds towards that final confrontation between Ryder and Cressy.
Oh man, that scene is intense.
It's not just a fight for survival at that point, is it? It feels like they're fighting for the soul of Mafeking itself. Like, can this town hold on to its humanity in the midst of all this chaos?
That's a great way to put it, because Ryder, despite his flaws, he represents that sense of community. He wants to help people. But Cressy only cares about himself. It's almost like a battle between good and evil.
And finally, the siege of Mafeking is lifted. What a relief.
You feel the weight lift off your shoulders, right? But there's also this sense of sadness. So much has been lost.
It's a bittersweet victory, for sure. There's that scene with Saffron where she talks about the strength she found in unexpected places.
Oh, I love that scene. The bonds that were forged during the siege, the way people came together to help each other. It's inspiring.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, human connection can shine through. We can find love, empathy, and support from each other. And that's something worth fighting for.
Absolutely. And even though the siege is over, the story doesn't just end abruptly. Smith shows us the aftermath, the lingering wounds, the process of rebuilding. It feels very real.
This deep dive has been amazing. Fire on the Horizon is more than just a historical adventure. It's a story about courage, about resilience, about the choices we make when faced with impossible odds. It's a story that stays with you.
It really does. If anyone out there is looking for a book that will transport them to another time and place, a book that will make them think, I can't recommend Fire on the Horizon enough, read the whole thing. It's worth it.
That's great advice. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to think about. What part of this story resonated with you the most? Was it the bravery of characters like Penrod and Saffron? Or was it the harsh realities of war and the way it impacts everyone involved? Let this story be a starting point for your own exploration of history, of humanity, of the power of the human spirit. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.